This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Why Is Everyone Yelling with Lindsay Hine. I am your host, Lindsay, and I'm so grateful that you're here today. This is a podcast for parents or anybody helping raise kids, and my hope is that you will leave each conversation armed with a little bit of knowledge that can help you in your day-to-day life raising kids. Today you're listening to episode 10, and I'm talking with Kariss Farris. Kariss is the mother of 3. She's a photographer, and she runs her business with her husband, Josh. So we get to hear a little bit about the behind-the-scenes life of working so closely with your husband. They've recently added 6 new employees to their business, so a lot of growth happening for 2020 with their business, which is super exciting. In this episode, we also talked to Kariss about her walk going through 4 miscarriages and how she responded to those miscarriages and felt a little bit differently than what you might think most women feel when they walk through a miscarriage. I think it's so important to hear different perspectives and different ways that people deal with this sort of loss. And Kariss has a really positive way that she thinks about things, and I hope that that's an encouragement to you. One of my favorite things we talk about in this episode is getting help when you need help. If you need help with childcare or it's time to hire someone new in your business, stop trying to do it all yourself, because when you free up that time and space in your life, you can likely do a lot more and meet more of your goals. All right, if you enjoy the podcast, please consider leaving us a rating and review and sharing it with your friends. That would be a huge help in growing this show. Okay, enjoy my conversation with Kariss Farris. Well, today on the podcast, I am super excited to welcome Kariss Farris to the show. Welcome to the show, Kariss.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How's your day going? I heard that you had a little one home today, and it's just so 2020 to be thrown into whatever comes your way.
Yes, yeah, we do have a little one home, our 2-year-old for the next 2 weeks. They had a COVID case at his school, and so they shut the whole thing down for the next 2 weeks. So we're, on a little bit of a tailspin, just trying to, get this next 2 weeks scheduled out and planned out, with all the other things that we had already scheduled to do. So this will be a fun ride.
Yeah, for the past 8 years, I feel like I've been juggling kind of like work from home mom life, half stay at home, half kids in childcare. And more than anything else in 2020, I feel like I've connected with so many other parents who have tried to juggle working while being home with their kids this past year.
Yeah, absolutely. It has definitely been an interesting experience, to say the very least, of just navigating just this new time. And like, nobody knows how to figure it out except for, stay-at-home moms who are already doing it anyway. They're like, no, we've been doing this. But, but it's been really, I would say for me, it's been really cool. Like just seeing how everybody figures it out for their own families and like what that looks like for them. I personally was homeschooled from the 6th grade to the 12th.
Wow.
And so my mom, she wasn't doing Zoom calls. She was creating lesson plans. I mean, she was like full on teacher mode, creating lesson plans, making sure that I had the right curriculum. She was teaching me a lot of things. I did a few co-ops as well. But so I kind of had that homeschool experience growing up. And so it's been interesting just seeing like now how people who are normally in school have to evolve to do, a version of homeschool. And so I don't know, it's just been fun for me to watch all of my friends and people that I know online, figure out what it looks like for them.
Well, and you had a baby amidst all of this. So you have 3 kids. Isn't your youngest only 2 months old?
She is 2 months. Yes, that is correct.
How are you feeling?
I feel great.
Yeah?
I think I probably took maybe, 2 weeks where I was kind of at home in bed,
Uh-huh.
and like really trying not to, have like, or just trying to have a bed rest.
Hmm.
But I know like the day after I had her, I was on the phone with our employees, like making sure things got done. So, I kind of ride the fence between like trying to have, a nice, newborn time, and also like getting on the phone and be like, hey, what's happening today? Where are we at? um, so it's, I kind of ride the fence.
I think there's like different kinds of people, right? And there's this, I don't know, I always hesitate saying the word balance, but I use it in my own life. So I think that like if you're the type of person that feels good about that and like it's going to make you feel better, right, to make those calls and still be kind of checking some things off, go for it. If you're the kind of person that needs like 2 weeks to just totally check off email and do none of that, go for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's 100,000% to each his own. I think there are times like I can look back and say, I probably should have rested a little
Yeah.
bit more. Like, maybe in that scenario, I didn't have to call in or have to do that. But I think majoritively, the place that I was in when I had her, I think we had just hired on our fourth employee. And so we were kind of in the middle of training him. And so it just was like, I want to be working. My desire is to, kind of bring this new person in. And so I think for me, it was a really easy decision at the time to just kind of work lightly from home when I was awake. But I still made sure that like I slept when she slept. And if I was tired, I took a nap. And so it was a very, kind of flowy way for me to work my way back in.
What an exciting time for you guys in your business, hiring your fourth employee. That I want to dive into that. That's so exciting.
Yeah, so we're at 6 now.
6
So that's
employees
wild.
on top
Yeah,
of you and your husband?
yes.
Wow.
So we have 4 full-time, part-time. And it is wild because literally last year at this time, I think we were thinking about hiring our first full-time employee. And so we hired our first full-time employee in 2019, and she was literally working at our kitchen table every day.
Uh-huh.
And so that was nuts, just having someone, work from your kitchen table from 9 to 5 every day. And so she left us in, I think, March of this year, and I took that time to like extremely extremely better define our manuals and our processes and our systems. And I took about like 2 months to do that. And then we hired on our new our new full-time employee in June or July. And so since June or July, we now have 6. And
So, wow.
yeah, it has been like rapid growth. And it's just, the growth was there, but we, really realized we needed more support to hold all of the growth and to continue to grow. And so it has been really just God is good, honestly. I mean, that's the only thing that I can say say about this whole experience. Is just God is good, and He just provided us the work to be able to provide for others and employing them. And it has been an awesome, crazy ride.
Wow. And I'm so intrigued by this, especially in 2020 and your business. You guys have a photography business. I'm so intrigued by how that growth happened during this kind of crazy year where a lot of people slowed down. But before we go there, I want to kind of introduce you, your husband, your kids to the listeners. I know you and your husband are in business together, and that is, it's a dream for me to live that life, but I also realize it's got to be really challenging at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. It is. It is. I mean, I could go into that. Would you like me to go into that?
Well, first, yes, let's go into that. But how'd you guys meet? I know you've been together for a very long time, and you were kind of like young love in college, right?
Yes, that is correct. So we met in 2010 at Baylor University, and when we met, we just were in the same friend group, so we were friends. I was dating someone at the time, and so was he, and so we just kind of hung out mutually in our mutual friend group, and it really didn't, pop off until 2012, when we were both, single. The details of the story is that I was really great friends with his roommate. His roommate and I worked together, and we had a deal that whenever his roommate wanted a home cooked meal, I would cook and he would pay for the food. And so I had been over, multiple times to like cook food, and so I could get a free meal and he could get a home cooked meal. And Josh, my husband, was never there. He was never there. And one time he was there when I was cooking, and his roommate left because he said he was going to go pick up a girl and come back, and his roommate never came back. His roommate was also my ride home, and neither Josh or I had a car, and we just stayed up talking that entire night. Just, one of those times like where you really connect with someone and the conversation just never ends. And that was that. And then in the morning he kissed me, and we've been together ever since.
Oh my gosh. Were you like 19?
I was 20.
And you guys are so cute. You're
Thank you.
You're the most like stylish, cute family ever.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So talk all night, first kiss in the morning, never looked back. And then once you got married, you had your first baby like quick.
Yes, it was ASAP. ASAP on accident. So I got pregnant 7 months in to us being married, and so it was, a total shock. I guess not too much of us. No, it was definitely a shock. We were shocked. And so, we just like went from there. And then our second, I got pregnant with our second when our first was 18 months, which was also a surprise. Every single time I get pregnant, let me just say it's a surprise. I don't know why, but we're always like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Every single time we're just shocked. But yes. So, and then, the third one, we got pregnant with when my son was 2. He's still 2. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now you have 3 kids.
Yes.
You've walked through 3 miscarriages.
4. Mm-hmm.
4.
Yeah, I've had 4. I had 3 in 2019 and 1 in between number 1 and 2.
Okay. 3 in 2019.
Yeah.
I want to hear you talk about this just a little bit. I had 2 miscarriages before my first child, and then I went on to have 4 kids. But I know that in the midst of like miscarrying, I felt like, is this ever going to happen for us? Are we ever going to actually have a baby? And I know your story is a little bit different because you had 1 by the time you had your first, miscarriage. But I heard you talk about this so powerfully, and I would love to hear you kind of walk through your emotions in that, because I know that you didn't grieve the same way a lot of people grieve a miscarriage, and I think that could bring a lot of comfort to others who might feel the same way you felt.
Yeah, and I kept that inside for a really long time because I felt guilty for not, feeling just the angst and the being so upset and saddened like so many women who have, who go through miscarriage do. And so I kept that inside of just having the miscarriage because I was so embarrassed that I wasn't emotional about it. But my first miscarriage in between the 2, like you said, it was different for me because I had already had 1. And I remember just like being distraught that I was pregnant. Like, oh my gosh, I think she was like 9 months at the time, that I pregnant with our second that I miscarried with. And so I was just distraught. I was like, Lord, I'm not ready for this. Like, it was just really difficult. At the time we were still newly married. Honestly,
yeah,
we were still in like 4 years of being married. And, the first years for us were really, really hard. And, you throw a baby into the mix, and that is even more difficult. And so I just remember getting pregnant and being just really upset about it. And, just sad about how is this going to work, and I'm already extended and this is difficult. And And so that being pregnant in itself just drew me closer to the Lord, because I was like, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And
Mm,
and then I had the miscarriage, and it was relief. It was
mm,
just like, oh my gosh, like thank you, Lord, for just kind of giving me more time. And I think that first miscarriage really taught me just to seek the Lord in the hard things. Because for me, getting pregnant was the hard thing. Just, oh, I'm pregnant again. Like, how am I going to do this? And knowing that I can find solace in Him, like through the difficult times. And then also, like, I just felt His grace so much of the miscarriage itself, which sounds nuts, I
mhm.
realize, but my miscarriage was not painful. I've heard, before that time, I'd heard how painful miscarriages were, and it was not painful at all. Like, I just remember I started bleeding a little bit, and then sat on the toilet and texted my midwife, and she was like, "Yeah, you just had a miscarriage," and I was like, "Wow, okay." And so just the grace in it not being painful, and the grace and like the relief that it provided me at that time in my life. And so really, I just think that for any miscarriage that I've had, just overall, they have all shown me something about God that I needed to know at that time. And they have all, taught me a lesson that I needed to know later, even though obviously, I didn't know why the miscarriages were happening in that moment. I always can look back later and say, wow, that had to happen for X, Y, and Z to happen, or for this to change in my life, or for me to understand this about God. So obviously, I know that miscarriages can be heartbreaking for so many people. And, for a couple that I had last year, it was also, really sad and heartbreaking. But I always, when I'm going through it, can understand, wow, I know that this miscarriage or other miscarriages that I've had in the past have taught me so much. So I'm going to look and seek what is the purpose in this, instead of just looking at the pain.
Mm. Yeah, I think about it sometimes too in the way that, when I had my miscarriages, I was really sad and I did grieve a lot. But I oftentimes do look at my 4 boys that I have now, and I think it wouldn't look just like if that
Right.
would have, if those pregnancies would have stayed with me. And
Exactly.
it's so weird to think of how different your life could be or would be, and to just look at it how it is now and think this is the way it was supposed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but you had 3 in 2019 before you got
Yeah.
pregnant with your daughter that you just had. I mean, I imagine after 3 in a row like that, you
Yeah, that
had
was
to
wild.
start wearing on you.
That was wild. Yes, yeah. I will say the first one, I was kind of in the same state that I was for the first miscarriage that I ever had. So my first miscarriage in 2019, I felt like I was in the same state as the one that I had in
Mm. Mm-hmm.
2016 or 2015, which was, I'm not ready for this. At the time, I was like trying to lose weight, and I was like
Mm.
actually doing it. I had lost like 30 pounds. And I was like, I had this plan. I was going to lose all this weight, and then we were going to get pregnant, and I was going to do these things in the business first. And so I was very much on a like my plan kind of track. And so when I got pregnant, I was like, oh, this is messing up my plan. And so clearly what that miscarriage taught me is like, it's not my plan. Like, I can
Mm.
make plans, but God orders my steps, and that I can't be, shook anytime, a blessing happens, because children are a blessing. And I think the way that I acted when I was, kind of shook that, oh, this is outside of what I had planned for myself for this year, it was really pitiful. Like, I was kind of like pouty and like, oh, I can't believe this, when so many women would die to get
Yeah.
pregnant. And so then at the point like where I kind of came full circle, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually excited to have a child. I had a miscarriage. And
Mm-hmm.
that was just such a like a full and complete lesson of, you are not in control. My way, the Lord saying to me like, my way is the best way, and yes, you make your plans, but I order your steps, and you can't be shaken when things come along that maybe were outside of what you had, seen for your life. And so that was really what that first one taught me. And then with the second one, well, I think it was maybe 2 months later for that second one that I got pregnant again. And mind you, like we never actively try to have children. We just don't try to stop it. So every time, like I said, I'm surprised. So we
Well,
got
because
pregnant
the
again.
chances, there's really only like a week window there where you're likely
Exactly.
going to get pregnant.
Exactly. And like we kind of do family planning, but like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's yeah. And so the second time that I got pregnant, I was like kind of excited. I was like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. Like, this is great. I'm going to have this baby. And like, because I was still kind of in that mindset from before. And then I had the miscarriage. And I think at the time we were going on vacation, and what I had was like a blighted ovum. And so they told me, hey, you can expect to miscarry. And so I was like, Lord, let me miscarry after this vacation. I legitimately like prayed for it. I was like, let me enjoy this time with my husband to reconnect, and then like just let it happen later. And that's exactly what happened. We went on vacation, and then the day after we returned, I started miscarrying. And so it was just a lesson in prayer, and it was a lesson of like God caring about the little things. And that, for me to know that I'm going to miscarry, and for me to be able to have a good time with my husband on vacation.
Wow.
And literally for the day after, for me to begin miscarrying, to me, that was like, the Lord cares about the small things too, in my life. And so, that miscarriage taught me more as well. But the miscarriage, I think because I'd had a child before, even though I had, had one in between the two, or I had two children at that point, excuse me. But even though I had a miscarriage, between the first, and I had kind of gone through those two miscarriages, I never doubted my ability to have children, because I'd already had two. Right. And the third, kind of having that miscarriage, it like freaked me out because I was like, can I not have any more children? Like, what is wrong with my body? Am I able to do this? What is going on? And so at that point, I discovered and read what is it called? Oh, goodness. I'll find the name of it. But it's by Jackie Mize. I do remember that. But it's basically about childbirth and praying for your child before they arrive. And, supernatural childbirth. That's what it's called. And then also like the birth itself, and praying through that, and, asking what God's will is for women in childbearing and in conceiving and all of that. And so after the third miscarriage, I like just went on this whole prayer journey of, praying very specifically and praying intentionally and praying, before conception and during the pregnancy period, and praying for the birth itself. And so really, I think the third miscarriage taught me that I am not owed children. Children are a blessing. It's not, I get pregnant and I can have babies. And I think I had a lot of pride in that I have pretty easy pregnancies, and that, my deliveries, although, the first one was long, I don't know. I don't have any like ill feelings towards my deliveries in the way that some women do. And so I just think I had a little bit of pride about the fact that about my pregnancies. And so sorry about that.
That's
in the
okay.
background. But yeah, I just had some pride about my pregnancies, and God just kind of shook that down with that third miscarriage. And so in addition to me realizing, okay, babies are a blessing. I am not owed this. I do not deserve a baby. This is a gift. It taught me a lot about prayer. And then literally as I was going to the doctor to just make sure that everything with my body was okay, and they were saying, don't get pregnant. On the last appointment that I was supposed to be getting tested at, just for the last, few things, I found out I was pregnant again. And so that was Josie, and she's here today. So I don't know if y'all can hear her nursing in the background, but
the tiniest bit.
With me. She is currently with me, but yeah. So I will say, like, I cannot look back and think negatively on any of my miscarriages, because they all were so vital in teaching me lessons that are eternal, and not just for, or that matter, in an eternal sense. And the pain that, I experience in the moment is like that. I mean, it literally is like a snap of the fingers in the grand scheme of just our lives in heaven, and what our eternity, will look like. And so I'm so grateful for each one and for what it taught me.
So yeah, you mentioned your faith a lot. You grew up in a Christian home. Is your dad a pastor?
So my grandfather's a pastor, but I just grew up in a single, I don't know why my words are escaping me, pregnancy brain still behind after the pregnancy.
8 weeks. Yep.
Man, anyway, but yes, I grew up in a single parent home with my mom, and so my grandfather was really like my dad for the first 10 years of my life before my mom married my stepdad. And so yes, my grandfather is a pastor, to answer your question.
Wow, your mom was not only a single mom, but she was also at home homeschooling you guys.
Yes, so it was wild. So, yeah, she was a single mom to me until I was 10. And then shortly after she got married is when she pulled me out of school to homeschool me. And
Okay.
so she says is that she pulled me out of school to fix me and then she was going to put me back. And then I just didn't want to go back. And she enjoyed the homeschooling process. And so she homeschooled me. And then when my three brothers came along, they were homeschooled from, the very get go until now. My oldest little brother is about to graduate high school.
Wow, so you're 10 years older than your three little brothers.
Yes, I am. So I'm 28 and my oldest little brother is 17. So whatever that math is.
Wow, that's wild. You probably feel a sense of like that you kind of helped raise them a little bit.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's crazy. Yeah, your mom had a little helper on hand there.
She did. I was happy to do it. I was happy to do it. So yeah, I truly do feel like I'm, their sister, but a little bit like mom as well.
Yeah, and I mentioned to my husband when I was prepping for this, I was like, yeah, they went to Baylor and they met at Baylor. Like I was just telling him about you and your family. I oftentimes do that before an interview. And I was like, yeah, that's a Christian school. And he was like, what? Baylor's a Christian school? I'm like, how do you not know that?
Yeah, very, very Christian.
I'm like, I was shocked that he didn't. I felt like that was common knowledge.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I thought it was too, but maybe not. I mean, I remember when I first went to Baylor, like you have to sign a contract to
Wow.
certain things. So yeah, I would say they're definitely a Christian school.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm curious about the business side of things too in your
Yeah.
life, and let's dive into that a little bit. Being a mom, running a business, I feel very much in my own life like I struggled for a really long time, living this like I'm a stay-at-home mom, but then I started my own business, and then I was like part-time stay-at-home mom, also trying to always work when people were napping. And honestly, like this is the
Mhm.
first year of my life that I have everybody in childcare or school, and I always thought like I didn't have mom guilt, but now that everybody is gone and I do have all that time, I think I
Mhm.
had this like pride in doing it all. I had this pride in like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm home with my kids, but I also work. And now
Yeah.
that I've surrendered and been like, I need help if I want to grow, I do have a sense of guilt. So, talk about that in your own life, how you've navigated that, starting your business, which is growing so successfully with your husband.
Yeah, so I will say though, from the very beginning, we have always had help. We have always had help on the home front. So, for example, when my daughter was 6 months, my first daughter, Ellie, when she was 6 months, I remember, I was sitting there editing photos with her, like on the table, on the
Mm-hmm.
desk with me, and like you said, trying to build a business, being mom at the same time, taking pride in that. And then it just got to the point where I feel like you cannot hold everything at once.
Mm.
So yeah, I had the kids and the business, but like my house was a mess and Josh would look at me and say, "Hey, what's for dinner?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. What's you tell me?" So there were other things falling off, with on the home front. And so it just got to a point where I told Josh, I was like, "I need help. Like I cannot do this all alone." And I will say, backstory for me is that my mom always had help. So
Mm.
she had me, and I was super helpful with my brothers and super helpful, around the house doing cleanup. But in addition to me, she always had a mommy's helper, and that mommy's helper would come like 3 times a week and do laundry and hold the baby so that she could go run errands or, do little projects for her. And so growing up, I had seen it. You can't do it without help.
Mm.
So that was my first step. Was I know that people who do it all have help, and I'm kind of growing into this phase where I'm doing it all. And so when Ellie was 6 months, I said I need some help, and it took my husband a second like to
Mm-hmm.
to like get used to that idea, because his mom was, you know I worked a 9 to 5, came home, made sure everybody's clothes were ironed for the next day of school, had dinner on the table by, a certain time. So he had seen her do it all and worked very, very hard, at that and making sure that her family was taken care of while also, being in an office all day. And so Joshua was like, well, my mom did it. And I was like, yes, but I'm not your mom and I need some help. And so we got help. And what that looked like in the beginning for us was having someone to come 3 times a week and hold Ellie and do some laundry and meal prep. And now what that looks like is we have someone who comes every single day. She picks up the kids from school. She does bath time routine. And sometimes she may stay like really late at night and get them into bed if necessary. And that happens, on occasion, but really that's so that when I'm with the kids, I am full on, not necessarily having to do the little things every day, but I'm able to really connect with them and do the stuff, that matters in the sense of, their emotional stability and their, knowing that I'm here. And when they were home during quarantine, she was there every day, all day. So kind of like from 9 to 5 so that Josh and I could still get things done. And that was so helpful for us. And so I will say, like I said, we have always had help. And I will be the first one to tell you that I do not do it all, that I have help so that, I can make a priority out of just all the areas of my life. So making sure that the things that need to happen with the business, I'm prioritizing that. But that also she's taking care of smaller things like laundry and meal prepping. And, sometimes that's bath time so that when I come home, I can be fully intentional with them by playing games and I don't have to worry about, have the onions been cut up for dinner yet? Like, have y'all had baths? Like those types of things.
How do you think you arrived at that so young? I mean, you're still only 28 too. I know you guys started having kids real young, but I feel like that's such a mature outlook at such a young age.
Yeah. I just turned 29 on Sunday. So
Happy birthday.
30. But yeah, I think I arrived at that because I saw it so early as well. I think, like I mentioned before, because I saw my mom doing it, that seemed normal to me. That seemed like, and so when I had my daughter, that seemed like the normal step. Okay, I have a business to run and I have a daughter and I still have to do home things because, even though I'm working, I'm still at home and, I want to make sure these things are done for my husband so that he doesn't have to worry about it, while he's working. And so it just was the natural next step because of how I was brought up.
Okay, so tell us about the business and how it worked out that you guys work together, you and your husband, Josh.
Yeah. So Josh started the business in college when he was going to school for mechanical engineering and started a photography business on the side just for extra money. And so that just kind of snowballed. He is really good at whatever he puts his mind to. And so when he graduated from college, he kind of had a photography business that was already doing weddings and portrait sessions and all of that. And while in college, when we met, I kind of helped him with the creative side of photography. So he's really good at the technical. Like if he takes a picture, it will be perfectly composed, be well lit, everything will be sharp. But like the couple might be staying there like, what do we do? So I would come in like almost as creative director and like posing and like, okay, take it from this angle and get this sunburst in the back and kind of the creative thing. And after a while, I was like, okay, you're not photographing like what my vision is for this photo. And so that's where I kind of came in and started shooting as well. And so when he graduated, he kind of, had prepared for himself a full-time job at NASA as a mechanical engineer.
Wow.
And so he really didn't have time to continue with the business. And so when I graduated, I was like, well, I'll just take it over then. And so we kind of did it, or I did it pretty much full time right out of college. And he just helped me on the weekends with shooting alongside me. And then he went full time in 2016, I believe it was. So he left NASA and went full time photography in 2016, just because it got to the point where he was taking, unpaid days off and they were starting to notice because traveling for photography. And so that's just was our journey into full time and into, photography and videography in the beginning.
That's so cool that you took over, what he had started in college, and also so cool that he started that in college. That's very ambitious. And I've seen you kind of talk about his ambition and how when he gets his mind to something, he's just all in. What's it like to be married to a dreamer like that?
It is wild. Yes. I mean, he's a dreamer, but even more so, he's a visionary. And so he doesn't only just see what could be. He sees what could be, and then he has a plan to get there. And sometimes, I will say we joke that I'm 2 years behind him because, he, for example, he had an idea that we would have, just this media company that did more than weddings and portrait sessions and, did media production for brands and for ministries and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, I remember him talking about that a little while after we had Ellie. So that was 5 years ago. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? I was like, what do you mean a media production company? I was like, we do weddings. I like weddings. I want to stick with weddings. And so that was 5 years ago. And now we have 6 employees. And what those 6 employees do mostly is make sure that our brands and ministries are all taken care of. And they hire out our associate photographers. And so that vision, though, he had 5 years ago. And to be, on a 2-year lag behind that, usually what I am, is wild. I'll say yesterday, he told me we're going to franchise this business. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I don't even understand what are the steps to get there. And he was like, don't worry about it. We'll come back to it in 2 years. And so it's wild, to answer your question, but also because he's such a visionary, that means, and really just it works out with my personality so well, is because I'm a what do I need to do today person to get this done, to get a task done. And so it works out well because he can see far in the future, and I'm like, all right, but right now we need to do A, B, and C. And right now our employees need to know, what they're working on tomorrow. And so it really does, we really do work well together because we're so different in the way that we approach tasks and just a vision as a whole.
Yeah, I so see that too, because looking at the big picture can be overwhelming, especially when you're like, well, I have to edit this podcast today, or I have to get these pictures out to the client. That all sounds great, but these things have to get done first.
Oh, yes. 1,000% yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm dying over you walking into a photo shoot and him having everything technically figured out and you being like, okay, we need to make these people look good now. Yes. I am the most awkward person when I get my picture taken. And even for this podcast, I had someone come over to do a bunch of headshots with different outfits and stuff. And I cannot do the fake laugh thing, but you need to do a good fake laugh to get a good picture.
It's true. But something I do a lot is I talk to my clients through the whole thing. So we're kind of talking and laughing anyway, and then I'll catch them kind of mid-laugh at something that we just discussed. So I love the weddings and lifestyle portion of what we do. And that's, pretty much, or not pretty much, I am over the weddings and lifestyle portion. And Josh has fully moved on to, the businesses, being a media company for businesses and brands and ministries. So he does shoot, certain weddings with me, but mostly he is fully moved on to the corporate and commercial side of our business because I love that. I love that stuff.
Hey friends, a quick break to let you know that we are part of the Sandy Boy Productions Network. We have 3 other shows in our network. I'll have another with Lindsay Hine where I interview runners and we get to hear their stories. The Up and Running podcast with Lauren and Abby. That's a great show where hosts Lauren and Abby cover all of the latest news in elite and professional distance running. And we have the Illuminate podcast, and that's a show where I co-host along with Emma Benner and Kristen Struer, and we're just bringing you stories of people doing really great, positive, uplifting work in the world. So if you're a runner or you're into hearing about good stories, make sure you add those to your podcast app. Thank you all so much for being here, and enjoy the rest of my conversation with Kariss Farris. How do y'all stay married and happy while working together so much?
I think in the beginning it was so hard, like so hard. I remember we would talk to my grandfather constantly about things that were happening in the business and like how I felt it was, things that were also, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say things that would happen in the business that would make me upset would also make me upset in our personal lives as well. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
you have this business, but then you get personally hurt about things that have happened in the business realm
Uh-huh.
when you work together. And we would go and talk to my grandfather all the time about those things. And we really just had to work through those kind of beginning few years of us working together because you each kind of want control of certain things. And so you have to figure out, well, who's in charge and who's in charge of what. And it was rough in the beginning. Now, however, it's awesome. I love working with Josh. I mean, I love that we're together all the time. When we first started dating, I think 6 months after we kind of got together, we were long distance after that for 2 years. And we were long distance until we got married. And so us being married was like the first time that we were together and, in the same city for a long period of time. And we just wanted to be together. And I think now it's the same. Like we just really like being together. And so, yes, working together, we definitely have our days. And I remember, when we were shooting weddings a few years ago, we'd have those like fix your face moments where it's like, okay, we're mad and we're upset at each other, but before we walk into this wedding, you're going to fix your face and you're going to so that nobody knows, that we're fighting right now. But now today I love it. And we've learned how to, make sure that we're respecting one another and, that we're not stepping on each other's toes, but that we're also both being heard. And so it's really beautiful just to be able to work with him every day and to see him every day. And just experience, growth with him, on a business corporate level.
Yeah, I love the fix your face thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's nothing more awkward than either witnessing a couple that you can tell they're
Oh,
in a fight or being the
yeah.
couple that's in a fight in front of
Yes.
people.
Yes. Oh, the worst.
It's so uncomfortable either way. You're like, what's going on with them? Or you're like, does everyone know we're mad at each other?
Exactly. Exactly.
Do you feel the pressure to make your own, like your Instagram is really great and your own family pictures are really great. Do you feel the pressure to make them really great considering that's what your profession is?
Yeah, I don't feel pressure to make them great. I want to make them great because I want my kids to have beautiful memories of their childhood.
Mm.
So it's not necessarily pressure as it is like I just want my family to have beautifully documented, images and video of how it was to grow up. And I'm interested to see like how the Lord allows that to play out in the lives of my children because as I look back, there were so many things that my mom did intentionally that she didn't realize it would manifest in the way that it did today. Or like maybe even things that she did unintentionally that she was like, wow, I can totally see how that, made you who you are today. And so that's just something that I love to do, but I am interested to see how it, forms and molds the lives of my children. Because I will say my daughter Ellie is like on point for the camera. Anytime she's on camera, she is like, hello, yes, I'm Ellie. And like perfect smile. Here we go. Because she, especially when she was growing up, I always had a camera in her face because she was just the chubbiest, cutest thing.
uh,
Um, and so yeah, I'm interested to see, in all of their lives how that turns out. But to answer your question, it's not pressure. I just love it.
I was dying at the video. You put it on your blog, but it's also on your Instagram of when I think you like took away her movie or something and she
Yeah,
was telling you about how she used to love you a lot and
yeah,
now she loves you a little.
yes. That is Ellie.
So cute. She's like, I love daddy more than you now.
Yeah, yeah. She's like, I used to love you as much as I love daddy, but not anymore.
Oh, it was hysterical. Do you print your pictures? I don't, I gave up on doing baby books after my first. And now I'm like, my mom printed some pictures and put them in this like old photo album for my oldest. And
Mhm.
he loves looking at it. It has like some pictures of me when I was little. And I'm such a minimalist in general with our house. At least I try to be. I don't want more things. But now I'm like, I feel like my kids would love to look at little
Oh, yeah,
printed books of their baby pictures and whatnot.
yeah.
Do you do that?
So I don't, but I need to. I will say though, I have a very, very wonderful organization system for our family photos.
Oh, tell me all about it.
Yes. So the goal though is so that when I do have time to kind of print it, that it's all there laid out like ready to go. But as I take photos, so essentially I'll see if I can describe this vocally, but I basically have a folder for the year. So let's say 2020. And then within that folder is each month. So January, February, March, April, May. And then within like let's say January, I may have separate folders that say like Park Day and then the images
Wow.
or day at the mall and then the images from that, so that within each month I can see, oh, what were we doing, so that I'm not just like looking at a bunch of pictures within a month and I'm like, okay, trying to figure out the context of it. And then also like I do try to kind of use Instagram as a journal, so to speak, so that when I do go back and make this album, I can have a little bit more context about what was happening, during that point time. So when I do go back and create an album, what I would like to do is to have a whole album for the year where it's kind of divided by month, of like what all we did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, are these pictures from your phone, or are these like I got my
Both,
fancy camera out?
both. Yeah. I would say, the way that I organize it, like by thing that we did, so like Park Day or Mall Day or whatever, those pictures are usually from my camera. But then I do have a folder that is specifically for my phone photos. But if you are taking photos with your phone, you can still do the same thing in terms of categorizing what was when. But then, it just makes it easy on the back end to make sure that you kind of know what everything is if you're putting them into, labeled folders. But then my plan also, when I get these albums made, is to make like 4 USBs with the year on it, because I remember going through my grandmother's photos when she passed away, and obviously like a USB wasn't a thing then. Like they literally printed the photos and they put them in the album.
Yeah.
I love those images, but we spent hours and hours like scanning them in so we could have them on a computer. And I want my kids to, yes, have the big album, but if they want a photo, I want them to be able to go into a USB and to find images that they want to be able to do, whatever they want with them when they're older.
My phone is a hot mess.
Oh, yeah.
Like just so many pictures of like retakes and like just million things I've screenshotted, and I feel like I want to hire someone just to go through that.
Yes. I mean, you could.
True.
You most certainly could. Or you could just spend like 30 minutes a day. I mean, you
Yeah.
could schedule in 30 minutes a day to go back through the months in your phone and just clear house,
I'm like, delete all the selfies, all the like retakes I had to do, the things that didn't work. If there's like 15 pics of one picture of a kid that, one or two of them you want to keep, like get rid of. You got to trust the person though to get rid of the ones you want to get rid of, and oh my goodness. I also feel like with Instagram stories now, like we're doing everything in like little like 15-second, 30-second clips, and I don't know if you remember this. I'm quite a bit older than you, but like we had the big video cameras when I was a kid out, and you would have like 30, 40 minutes of footage at once. And I'm like, are we not getting any like bigger chunks of time recorded? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely like fell into that trap of like just posting or recording like in Insta story and then just saving from there.
Yeah.
Probably like it was probably up until like mid last year that I was doing that. And then my grandmother got sick and I had that realization because we were watching home videos. I had that same thing like, whoa, I'm sitting here watching a 40-minute film of somebody carrying around, a big camera that sat on their shoulder because that's what it was. And then like recording everything. And I just thought, oh, my kids are going to be so shorted because I have these 15-minute clips of the last like year of their lives. It was probably like a year that I was just doing Insta stories and saving them.
Yes.
So at that point, because my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer and I just was like, ugh, this is stupid. And that's when I started turning my phone horizontally and capturing like the full like long minutes of time.
Yeah.
And I love it. And kind of go back and forth now. Like if I know that it's like an event that I want to remember, like we did a harvest fest at my church this past Saturday, I turned my phone horizontally and I think I have like 30 minutes of that. Of just like that And so I think you just choose your moments that you want, captured more fully.
And then will you upload that to YouTube, or how will you keep that?
Yeah, so I save it. So the same way that I save photos is how I save videos. So I'll just like put it in whatever photos, whatever the folder is of the photos that I took at that time as well. I'll put the video into that same folder. And I have to decide about how I'm going to retain, all of that, because I feel like, VHSs, they go bad over a long period of time. And I remember
Right.
my mom, she just like had to transfer those all to USB. And so I'm trying to figure out how I want to kind of combine them all. And, for my kids to watch later, I'm still figuring that out. When I know, I'll let you know.
Okay, good. Yeah, the whole system stresses me out. There's
It-
so many moments and kids and memories to document,
yeah.
and yeah, I don't have a great system. Okay. Step 1, make folders
Yes,
to store your pictures, everybody.
absolutely. Get them off of your phone.
Talk to us a little bit about stepping out in faith to hire those employees. I have one employee, and even for me, I'm like, like just hiring your first employee can be a little bit stressful, because you're like, okay, all of a sudden I'm spending this money, and then also your employees are relying on you for their income, so you have that kind of ownership there as well.
Yeah, it is definitely scary, super duper scary. I will say that I have a cheat system in my husband because he is a planner.
Mm.
And so, we don't make any move without it being carefully thought through and financially feasible. But it is still a risk, 100%, because you realize that you have all this work that needs to be done and you can't do it on your own. And so you're hoping, there is kind of a hope factor in there that it'll all work out. But I think what we did is when we couldn't hold all the growth, that's when we knew it was time to hire. Or, also when um, you have you cannot work on your business anymore because you're too busy working in your business. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if I can't bring in new clients because I'm too busy editing, I need to hire somebody.
So
you know
true. So true.
do that. I can keep doing that and I'll stay at the same uh, level that I am now, just with the clients that I have and all that. Or I can hire somebody to help me with editing so that I can go in and bring in new people. And I will say that that's really the main reason why we've hired so many people, is because we've kind of hit these growth blockades. For Josh, it was, I'm sitting here on email every day scheduling things, and I'm not actually able to build business and to grow and to get into the marketing side. And so he hired an administrative assistant for scheduling and for all of that. And then for me, it was, oh my gosh, I'm talking to these brides all day and I'm figuring out their locations and I don't have time to edit and I don't have time to, be on Instagram the way that we need to be. And so we hired a client relations manager who could do that. And I mean, for every area that we've hired somebody, it's because we've kind of just superseded what we can do on our own without stopping our growth.
Yeah. Why do you think 2020 has been such a successful year for you guys in terms of growth?
Number one, God is good.
Mm.
Number two, well, I'll say two parts in the God is good. Number one, I have fully seen that when you give God your first, so tithing, 10% of everything that you make, and when you give him that first, the growth that you will see is astronomical. I mean, and it is biblical. God says that to give him our first, and we make it a priority to do that, and God has not let us down yet. We haven't had to lay anybody off. We haven't had to kind of scale back in any way, because we always give him our first. Whatever we receive, he gets the first from that. So I will say, number one, God is good. And then number two, um, oh, I think COVID, where for some people it, devastated their business. For us, because we're specifically in media production, now people needed a way to get their message out.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to meet online, and we produce content. That's what we do. So yes, we do weddings and lifestyle, which is my thing, but Josh does a lot of commercial and a lot of ministries and brands. And so, what do you when it's an event and now it has to be online? Well, you need a camera crew to be able
Mm-hmm.
to that. And if you want a Zoom call that looks better than, your computer camera can be, then you need lighting and you need a camera hooked into your computer. And so we grew a lot in part because of COVID. Churches now had to be online, and that definitely contributed so much to our growth.
Wow. Do you think that having all of that to focus on made the heaviness of COVID lessen because you were like so busy?
100%. Yeah. We like, while everyone was like, we're at home, like we're super bored, we were like, I'm so busy. I don't have time to do anything else. Like, we were in a total opposite world than the vast majority of people that we knew. So it was just a really weird, like, we just really kind of clung to each other because nobody at the time understood how busy we were or how we could be so busy. And obviously, like, really grateful for that time. And even, I mean, it's still kind of going, honestly.
And you were pregnant.
And I was pregnant. Yep. I mean, literally the day before I got pregnant, we were moving into a bigger office. And not the day before I got pregnant, the day before I had Josie, we were moving into a new office. And I was like scooting desks and like lifting chairs.
Inducing some labor here.
Right.
Wow. I knew you had a natural childbirth with your second. Like, I watched the video and everything of you in the bathtub. It was super emotional. Did you do that with your third as well?
So with our third, I mean, it was wild. It was so fast. I kind of noticed that I might be in labor around like 7:30 that Sunday morning that I had her, and then kind of called my Josh was out of town. He was in Houston, which was 4 hours away from where we live, and I called him and I was like, hey, I think you need to get here like now. I think you need to get in the car right this second and drive back to Dallas. And so that was 7:30, and then I called my aunts to come and pick up, our two older kids, and then by the time my other aunt got to me to take me, I think it was like 9:30. We got to the birthing center. I think maybe it was 10 o'clock, and then I had her at 10:45.
Wow.
So it was really fast. It was really, really fast. So I think when we got to the birthing center, I laid on the bed in a certain position because they wanted her to be in a certain position for the birth. And I laid on the bed for maybe 15 minutes. And then I felt like, okay, I think I have to use the restroom. And so I walked to the restroom, sat on the toilet, and I said, I think I need to push. And she was like, I don't think so. Like, we checked you were at a 6. And I just remember sitting there like calm, and I was like, okay. And in my head, I was like, I need to push. And so I'm going to push. Like, if it's a baby comes out, great. If it's poop, that's fine, And so I pushed like one good time, and she looked and she's like, that's a head. We need to go. She literally, like, we ran from the bathroom to the tub, like,
wow,
a child's head, like, coming out. So I got in the tub. I think I maybe pushed 3 times, and she was out.
Wow.
I will say 1000% that it was a different experience because I had read this book called Supernatural Childbirth. And it talks about having a pain-free birth, which sounds absurd when you're reading it. You're like, what the heck? Especially after you've had 2 children. I'm like, does that exist? What is that? What is a pain-free childbirth? Like, that can't be possible. And so really though, what I was praying for was a fear-free childbirth because I was like, I don't know about this pain-free thing because I've done it and it hurts, but I can pray, for the Lord to take away my fear because I remember with my first 2, I verbally said, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. Like, when you get to that point of transition and it just hurts so bad and you're so fearful and you're just afraid. That's the point, that I'd gotten to for the first 2 of just me being like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified. This is so painful. Is it going to work? Am I going to have to, go to the hospital? And so I was praying for a childbirth without fear. And so with that, what that looked like tangibly for me is every time I would feel a contraction, usually like you get scared and you tense up and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like you're bracing yourself for the pain. And instead of that, I was like, okay, Lord, like, what do you want me to do through this contraction? Like, how do you want me to lay? Do you need me to move, Lord? Like, tell me what you want from me from this childbirth. Like, I don't want to have fear, so walk me through it. And, very tangibly, I remember laying there and kind of tensing up and praying like, Lord, what do you want me to do? And just, feeling the Holy Spirit say like, relax, like you're tense, relax. And I would relax. And I will say, the childbirth itself was intense, but it wasn't painful. It was every single contraction had a purpose, and I could feel what it was doing because I wasn't tense and scared and like tightened up and trying to fight it. So I remember I was laying there and I felt, the Holy Spirit say, relax. And so I would relax and I would literally like feel her moving down. Like I could feel like the transition of her moving down. And so it was just a really crazy thing. So.
Wow. I mean, I had a C-section for my first, and then I did 3 VBACs, but I was all on that epidural train, and I don't regret it. And obviously, there's no one way to do things, but that sounds so beautiful.
Yeah, I think you should I think everybody should at least try a natural childbirth. At least once.
I mean, I think that the thing about it is too, though, like if you're going to try, go into it with like that mental training that you had, because you were telling your body like, okay, you need to relax, or God was telling you that, because if you don't go into it prepared for any of that, you're going to hurt real bad.
Oh yeah. It's going to hurt so bad.
My friend Emily has kind of witnessed one of our other friends give birth, and she always says she does this so naturally. Like I've never seen anybody walk through contractions and like breathe through it like she does. And so, yeah, I mean, the way you explained it really sounds like what this woman I'm talking about does when she gives birth, where the rest of us are like, oh my God.
Yeah. Because that's, and in my experience, because I was that person who was saying, oh my God, this hurts so bad, make it stop. I was that person. And okay. I was that person. And what made me not that person was just not having fear about, being so scared of what's going to happen or how bad it's going to hurt on the next contraction.
Totally. Okay, well, this has been just wonderful, and I've loved getting to know your story. Let's wrap up here with some end of the podcast questions.
Okay.
I know that everybody is super inspired by all that you're doing with your business, and I don't know, maybe we've encouraged some people to try that natural childbirth route too. Kariss, what is one thing professionally or personally that you'd like to do that you haven't done yet?
I think professionally, I would like to shoot more overseas. So obviously, once this whole COVID thing has passed, I would love to be able to, travel a little bit more and to shoot in different places. That's one thing professionally that I would love to do. And to be able to bring my kids along. Oh, sorry about that. But yes, sorry.
Okay.
Kids at home. But yes, I would definitely love to travel more professionally. And then personally, I think that I would like to experience a little more freedom. And I think that is also maybe tied into professional, but my professional and personal life are very married. And so I think personally just experiencing more freedom, and the freedom that comes with, having people here and employees to help us. And so I think, after we kind of are able to move further out of, newly having employees, I think I'll be able to just to have more freedom in my personal life to be with my kids and to do, things that for our family more. And I would definitely like to do that.
Let me ask you this. For the traveling for work, would you guys bring a babysitter with?
100%.
Yes, I love it.
That or a mother-in-law.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love it. What's the best, most recent book you've read?
So Childbirth in the Glory was, I think, the latest book that I finished. I'll say I start a lot of books and then don't finish them. But Childbirth in the Glory was definitely the last book that I read. And I read that 4 times because it's not very long. You can read it pretty quickly. But yeah, that's the last book.
What's it called?
Childbirth in the Glory. Actually, no, I'm sorry. That's the CD that I listened to. Supernatural Childbirth.
Oh, the book. Okay. Yeah. So did you read it 4 times through, while you were pregnant, just to prepare yourself?
Yes. Yes. I read it while I was pregnant. I read it before I was pregnant. I will say, if if you, I would highly suggest reading it even before you get pregnant, because there's so much you can pray about even before you conceive. And, for me, with my pregnancy with Josie, I had a lot of anxiety kind of in the middle to end phase. And so it really helped me with that. And I would definitely read it, before, read it again during, and read it again like right before you're about to give birth.
Did you listen to music while you were in labor?
I listened to a CD called Childbirth in the Glory. That's what I was
That's
referring
the CD.
to. Yes, that's the CD. And it literally was verses and prayer over every single part of childbirth. And it was awesome. I listened to music in times before, and I feel like that CD of scripture was just so much more grounding than music could have been, because it just helped me to make sure I was focused on, the Lord's intention through this birth and how to get through it, and not so much of like hoping that music would calm me down.
Yeah. Do you have any books you recommend for your kids?
I am a person who very much loves the classics. I love The Giving Tree, Goodnight Moon, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Like, I'm a very classics person when it comes to children's books.
They're classic for a reason.
Exactly. I agree.
What is your one message to send to our audience today to leave everybody with?
Yeah, I mean, my one message would be something that I try to live by is just glorifying God in everything that I do and that you do. And so, number one, if you're a person who's a Christian and who already knows the Lord, then I would just suggest find in everything, whether it be your family life, your professional life, your relationship with your husband, in every way, figure out how how you can glorify the Lord and in what way you can apply what God is teaching you into every piece of your life. And if you're a person who doesn't know the Lord, I'm a creative person, and there's no way that I could do what I do if I didn't know the person who created me. And so I would say, like I said, if you're not a believer, to look to the person who created you to find out what your purpose is in life.
I love it. All right, Kariss, well, thank you so much, and good luck during this quarantine, having your kiddo home and with the business and everything.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Thanks, Kariss, for sharing your story. You can learn more about Kariss. You can find her on Instagram. She is Kariss Farris over there. You can learn more about her photography business over at pharrisphotos.com. And that's Farris with a P, Pharris, photos.com. You can find us on Instagram. We are Why Is Everyone Yelling over there. And we also have a great Facebook group. If you just search Why Is Everyone Yelling in Facebook groups, you'll find us. If you'd like to be added to our email list so these show notes could be emailed directly to you, email emma@sandyboyproductions.com. All right, friends, I appreciate you being here. Have a really great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.